The massive alien ships hung in space above Earth like dark clouds before a storm. 10,000 vessels stretched across the sky, each one bigger than the largest human city. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that human eyes had never seen before. Weapons that could destroy entire planets pointed down at the blue world below. Commander Lee Dae-hyun stood in the underground command center beneath Seoul, staring at the holographic display that showed the enemy fleet. The room buzzed with quiet activity as his officers worked at their stations, but everyone could feel the weight of what was happening above them. Earth was surrounded. Humanity was trapped. "Sir, we have another transmission coming in," said Kim Tae-won from the communications desk. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he worked the controls. "It's from their command ship." "Put it through," Dae-hyun replied. He was a tall man with graying hair at his temples, someone who had spent 30 years in the military. He had fought in wars across the galaxy, commanded fleets that protected human colonies, and never once backed down from a fight. But this was different. This was impossible. The hologram flickered and showed the face of Admiral Kivos, the alien commander leading the invasion fleet. He looked almost human, except for his pale blue skin and the strange ridges that ran along his forehead. His eyes were completely black, like looking into deep space itself. "Humans of Earth," Kivos said, his voice cold and emotionless. "You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally. Your colonies have fallen. Your fleets are destroyed. You stand alone against the combined might of 47 civilizations. Submit now, and some of your species will be allowed to live under our guidance. Resist, and we will turn your world into dust." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Dae-hyun looked around at his staff. Park Mina, his tactical analyst, was studying the enemy fleet composition on her screen. Her face was pale, but she kept working. Lieutenant Cho Jun-hyuk was reviewing defense protocols, even though everyone knew their orbital defenses could not stop even 1% of the alien armada. "What's our status?" Dae-hyun asked. "All human colonies have gone silent," reported Kim Tae-won. "The last transmission we received was from New Seoul Colony. They said enemy ships were landing. That was 6 hours ago." Park Mina looked up from her display. "Sir, I've analyzed their fleet. They have enough firepower to destroy Earth's surface 50 times over. Our orbital platforms won't even slow them down." "Ground forces?" Dae-hyun asked. "Every nation on Earth has mobilized," said Cho Jun-hyuk. "But sir, their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their shields can stop our best weapons. Their energy cannons can cut through our strongest armor like paper." Dae-hyun nodded slowly. He had known this moment might come. Humanity had expanded, fast across the galaxy, settling on dozens of worlds, building colonies and trading posts wherever they could find a place to live. They had been so focused on exploring and growing that they had not noticed the older civilizations watching them, with growing concern. The Galactic Confederation had been ruling this part of space for thousands of years. 47 different alien species, all working together under one government. They had their own way of doing things, their own rules about which species could live where and how fast they could grow. Humanity had broken those rules without even knowing they existed. "Sir," said a voice from the doorway. Dr. Yoon Hae-ji walked into the command center. She was Earth's best expert on alien languages and cultures, a small woman with kind eyes who had spent years studying every piece of information they could gather about other species. "I need to speak with you." Dae-hyun stepped aside with her. "Doctor, please tell me you have some good news." "I've been studying their demands," she said quietly. "They're not just asking for surrender. They want to lock humanity on Earth forever. No more colonies, no more exploration, no more growth. They see us as a threat." "A threat?" Dae-hyun almost laughed. "Look at that fleet up there. How could they possibly see us as a threat?" "Because we're different," Dr. Yoon said. "I've been researching the history of the Galactic Confederation. Every species they've conquered before gave up quickly when faced with superior force. They followed predictable patterns, used standard military tactics. We don't." "What do you mean?" "Commander, how many wars has humanity fought in the last 1,000 years?" Daehyun thought about it. "Hundreds. Maybe thousands, if you count every conflict." "Exactly. And how many wars have the species in the Galactic Confederation fought against each other?" "I don't know. Not many, I suppose. They've been united for a long time." "Zero," Dr. Yoon said. "They've fought 0 wars against each other for the past 3,000 years. They conquer primitive species that can't fight back, or they absorb civilizations that choose to join peacefully. They have no experience fighting an enemy that knows how to fight back." The command center's alarm suddenly began ringing. Kim Tae-won called out, "Sir, we are receiving transmissions from world leaders. Everyone wants to know what our response will be." Daehyun walked back to the main display. Reports were coming in from around the globe. The president of the Americas Union was asking for immediate surrender. The European Federation wanted to negotiate. The African coalition was demanding a fight to the last man. Everyone had a different opinion, but they all looked to Earth's military command for the final decision. "What are our options?" asked Park. "Mina. We surrender and spend the rest of human history as prisoners on our own world," said Cho Jun-yok. "Or we fight and die in the next few hours." "There's a third option," said Dr. Yoon quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "What third option?" Daehyun asked. "We show them something they've never seen before. Something that might make them think twice about what they're doing." "Doctor, they have 10,000 ships. What could possibly make them hesitate?" Dr. Yoon smiled slightly. "A name. A name. Commander, have you ever heard of Admiral Yi Sun-sin?" Daehyun nodded. Every Korean child learned about the great admiral in school. "Of course. He was a naval commander during the Japanese invasions, won impossible battles against overwhelming odds." "Tell me about the Battle of Myeongnyang." "He had 13 ships. The enemy had 333. Everyone said he should retreat, but instead he chose the perfect place to fight. He used the enemy's numbers against them, forced them into a narrow channel where only a few ships could attack at once. He won a complete victory." "Exactly," said Dr. Yoon. "Now, what if we could do something similar?" "Doctor, this isn't the 16th century. We can't trick 10,000 spaceships into a narrow channel." "Maybe not, but we can send them a message. Something that tells them we're not like the other species they've conquered. Something that says we know how to fight impossible battles and win." The communication system chimed. Admiral Kivos appeared on the screen again. "Humans, you have 1 hour remaining. Transmit your formal surrender or face destruction." Daehyun looked around the room at his officers, then at Dr. Yoon. "You really think this will work?" "I think it's the only chance we have." Daehyun walked to his desk and picked up a simple piece of paper and a pen. In the age of computers and holograms, it seemed almost primitive, but sometimes the old ways were the best ways. He thought about Admiral Yi Sun-sin, facing impossible odds with courage and intelligence. He thought about all the human commanders throughout history who had found ways to win when winning seemed impossible. Then he wrote a single name on the paper, Yi Sun-sin. He held the paper up to the camera that connected to the alien fleet. "Tell Admiral Kivos," he said to Kim Tae-won, "that this is our answer." High above Earth, confusion spread through the alien command ships as they tried to understand what the human leader meant. But in the command center beneath Seoul, Dr. Yoon smiled. The real battle was about to begin. High above Earth, Admiral Kivos stared at the image on his command screen. A piece of paper. A single name written in black ink. Yi Sun-sin. The human commander had sent this instead of surrender terms. What did it mean? The bridge of the Confederation. Flagship was huge and dark. Alien officers from different worlds worked at control stations that glowed with soft blue light. Some had 4 arms, others had skin like metal, and some breathed different air through special masks. But they all served the same cause. They all followed the same rules that had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. "Analysis report," Kivos ordered. Commander Vorthak stepped forward. He was from the hegemony worlds, tall and thin with gray skin and no hair. His people had joined the Confederation 300 years ago after their planet was conquered. Now, they served as loyal officers in the fleet. "The translation systems have identified the name," Vorthak said. Yi Sun-sin appears to be a historical figure from the human homeworld, a military commander from their ancient past. How ancient? Approximately 400 Earth years ago. He was a naval officer during what humans call the Imjin War. Admiral Kivos felt confused. Why would the humans send him the name of a dead commander instead of surrender papers? "What else do we know about this person?" "Our computers are still gathering information, but initial reports suggest he was involved in naval battles during a conflict between human nations on their homeworld." Zestine of the Crystal Worlds floated closer to the command platform. Her people did not have solid bodies like most species. Instead, she was made of living energy that took the shape of colored light. Perhaps this is some kind of cultural reference. Many primitive species have superstitions about ancient heroes. "Superstitions will not save them from our weapons," said Morpheus Prime. He was from the Synthetic Collective, a machine intelligence in a metal body. His red eyes glowed as he processed data. "I recommend we begin bombardment immediately. Their response shows they are not taking our demands seriously." But Admiral Kivos held up one hand. Something felt wrong about this. In 3,000 years of Confederation expansion, no species had ever responded to an ultimatum with a historical name. They sent surrender documents or pleas for mercy or threats that meant nothing. "Never a single name on a piece of paper." "Continue analysis," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this Yi Sun-sin before we proceed." Down on Earth, in the command bunker beneath Seoul, Dr. Yoon Hae-ji sat at a computer terminal reading through old historical records. Commander Dae-hyun stood behind her, watching the alien fleet on the main screen. The ships had not moved from their attack positions, but they had not fired either. "Tell me more about Yi Sun-sin," Dae-hyun said. "Why did you suggest his name?" Dr. Yoon pulled up a map on her screen. It showed the coast of Korea as it had looked 400 years ago. The year was 1597. Japan had invaded Korea with a massive army. They had conquered most of the country and were planning to invade China next. The Korean Navy was almost completely destroyed. How does this help us now? Because of what happened at Myeongyang Strait. Admiral Yi Sun-sin had only 13 ships left. The Japanese had 333 ships coming to destroy him. Every other Korean commander said he should retreat, run away and save what little fleet he had left. Park Mina looked up from her tactical display. What did he do? He studied the enemy. He learned their patterns, their weaknesses, their way of thinking. Then he picked the perfect battlefield. Myeongyang Strait was narrow, with strong currents that changed direction every few hours. Most of the Japanese ships would not be able to maneuver properly. And he won. Complete victory. He sank 31 Japanese ships and damaged dozens. More without losing a single Korean vessel. The Japanese invasion fleet was so badly damaged they had to retreat. Lieutenant Cho Junhyuk frowned. But that was 400 years ago. Ships moving on water. This is space combat with energy weapons and shields. The technology is different, Dr. Yoon agreed, but the principles are the same. Yi Sun-sin won because he understood something the Japanese did not. Numbers alone do not guarantee victory. The right strategy in the right place at the right time can overcome any advantage. Kim Tae-won called out from his communications station. Sir, we're getting reports from our monitoring posts. The alien fleet is scanning our databases. They're trying to learn about Yi Sun Sin. Good, said Dr. Yoon. Let them learn. Back on the Confederation flagship, the analysis was complete. Vorthak read the report to Admiral Kivos and the other commanders. Yi Sun Sin was indeed a naval commander, he said. But the records show something unusual. He appears to have won several battles against superior enemy forces. The Battle of Myeongyang is particularly noted. 13 ships defeated 333 ships. Impossible, said Morpheus Prime. Their primitive weapons could not have achieved such results. The data must be incorrect. The records come from multiple sources, Vorthak replied. Both Korean and Japanese historical documents confirm the battle results. Zestine's energy form flickered with what might have been concern. If these records are accurate, this human commander achieved something that defies standard military logic. Admiral Kivos studied the battle data on his screen. The tactical situation showed impossible odds. Any reasonable commander would have retreated. Instead, this Yi Sun Sin had chosen to fight in a location that favored his smaller force. What made the difference? He asked. According to the records, Yi Sun Sin used the terrain to his advantage. The narrow strait prevented the Japanese from using their numerical superiority. The tidal currents disrupted their formation, and the EO, Korean commander, had superior knowledge of local conditions. Local knowledge, Kivos repeated slowly. Something about that phrase bothered him. Sir, said another officer, there is something else. Our xenologists have completed their analysis of human military history. The pattern is consistent across their entire civilization. What pattern? Humans appear to specialize in defeating superior forces through unconventional tactics. Their historical records are full of similar victories. Small armies defeating large ones, weak nations surviving attacks by stronger enemies, defensive positions holding against overwhelming assaults. The bridge fell silent. This was not what they had expected to find. Every other species the Confederation had encountered followed predictable military patterns. They used their technology and numbers in straightforward ways. When faced with superior force, they surrendered logically. There is more, the officer continued. Human military training appears to emphasize the study of historical battles. They teach their commanders to learn from the past, to understand how previous generals won impossible victories. Are you saying, asked Zestine, that modern human military leaders study these ancient tactics? Extensively. It appears to be a core part of their military education. Admiral Kivos felt something he had not experienced in many years. Uncertainty. The Confederation had conquered 47 different species, and every conquest had followed the same pattern. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, accept submission. It had always worked. But none of those species had spent thousands of years fighting wars against themselves. None of them had military leaders who studied every battle their ancestors had ever fought. Sir, said Vorthak, should we proceed with the bombardment? Kivos looked at the tactical display showing Earth surrounded by Confederation ships, 10,000 vessels against a few hundred human defenders. By every logical calculation, this should be the easiest conquest in Confederation history. So why had the human commander sent the name of an ancient admiral instead of surrender documents? No, Kivos said finally. Not yet. I want more analysis. Study every major battle in human history. Find out how they think, how they fight, what makes them different from other species. Sir, that could take hours, protested Morpheus Prime. Every hour we delay gives them more time to prepare defenses. What defenses? Kivos asked. They have no ships that can threaten us, no weapons that can penetrate our shields. What could they possibly do in a few hours that would matter? Down in the Seoul bunker, Commander Daehyun smiled as he watched the alien fleet maintaining its positions. They were not attacking. They were thinking. That was exactly what Dr. Yoon had hoped would happen. How long do we have? He asked. Hard to say, she replied. But every hour they spend trying to understand Yi Sun Sin is another hour for us to prepare. Prepare for what? We still can't fight 10,000 ships. Dr. Yoon looked at him with eyes that held a secret. Commander, what if I told you that we don't need to fight 10,000 ships? What if we only need to fight the right ship at the right time in the right place? Before Dae-hyun could ask what she meant, Lieutenant Cho Jun-yuk called out from across the room. Sir, we're receiving coded transmissions from our deep space monitoring stations. Something is happening in the outer system. What kind of something? Unknown ships, sir, moving toward Earth on a course that will bring them behind the alien fleet. Dae-hyun and Dr. Yoon exchanged glances. The battle for Earth was about to become much more complicated. And somewhere in space, the ghost of Admiral Yi Sun-sin seemed to whisper across the centuries, "Choose your battlefield carefully." The alien fleet began to move. After hours of staying in one place, the massive ships slowly changed positions around Earth. Admiral Kivos had made his decision. The humans had refused to surrender, so now they would face the consequences. Captain Seo Minji watched the enemy ships from her orbital defense platform above the Pacific Ocean. She was 32 years old, with steady hands and calm eyes that had seen combat before. Her platform was small compared to the alien vessels, just a collection of railguns and missile launchers floating in space. But it was her job to defend Earth, no matter how impossible that seemed. All stations, this is Platform 7, she said into her radio. Enemy fleet is moving to attack formation. Prepare for combat. Around Earth, similar messages went out from every human defense station. Platform commanders, fighter pilots, and missile battery crews all knew they were about to face an enemy they could not defeat. But they also knew something else. Commander, Dae-hyun had sent them special orders an hour ago. Orders that made no sense to most of them. Protocol Yi Sun-sin is now active, Minji told her crew. All defensive positions will implement the new targeting data immediately. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Park Dong-yuk, looked confused. Captain, these coordinates don't match our sensor readings. According to this data, we should be aiming at empty space. Follow your orders, Lieutenant. But Captain, if we fire at these coordinates, we'll miss every enemy ship by kilometers. I know. Do it anyway. Down on Earth, in a hidden facility beneath the mountains of Switzerland, Dr. Song In-woo made final adjustments to his equipment. He was a physicist, a man who understood light and energy and the way things appeared to the human eye. For the past 6 months, he had been working on a project that most people thought was impossible. Holographic projectors are online, he reported to his team. All satellites are responding. We're ready to begin. The alien fleet moved closer to Earth. Their energy weapons began to charge, creating a glow that could be seen from the planet's surface. In a few minutes, they would start destroying human cities one by one until the survivors agreed to surrender. Admiral Kivos stood on his command bridge, watching the tactical display. Everything was proceeding normally. The human orbital defenses were powering up, but their weak weapons could not penetrate Confederation shields. This would be over quickly. Sir, said Commander Vorthak, we are detecting energy signatures from the human defense platforms. They're preparing to fire. Let them. Their weapons cannot harm us. Sir, something strange is happening. Our sensors show the human platforms are targeting empty space. Kivos frowned. Empty space? Yes, sir. Their weapons are not aimed at any of our ships. They appear to be firing at coordinates where nothing exists. Equipment malfunction? Unlikely, sir. All human platforms are showing the same targeting error. Before Kivos could respond, the human defenses opened fire. Railgun projectiles and missiles streaked through space, heading for what appeared to be empty areas around the alien fleet. As predicted, they hit nothing and exploded harmlessly in the void. As expected, said Morpheus Prime. Human technology is primitive and inaccurate. Begin bombardment of their positions. The Confederation ships fired their energy weapons. Bright beams of destructive force lanced out toward the human orbital platforms. But something impossible happened. The energy beams passed through empty space where the human platforms should have been. "Report," Kivos demanded. "Sir, our weapons are missing their targets. Sensors show the human platforms are in one location, but our energy beams are not connecting." "Recalibrate. Targeting systems. Systems are functioning normally, sir. But the human positions appear to be in two different places at once." On Platform 7, Captain Minji smiled as alien energy beams passed harmlessly through the space where her station appeared to be. Dr. Song's holographic projectors were working perfectly. The aliens were seeing false images of human defenses, while the real platforms remained hidden in different positions. "All platforms, continue firing at designated coordinates," she ordered. "Do not target alien ships directly." "Captain," asked Lieutenant Park, "why are we not shooting at the enemy?" "Because we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to confuse them." The alien fleet fired again and again at the phantom images of human defenses. Each time, their weapons hit nothing. Meanwhile, the real human platforms kept firing at what seemed like empty space. But the empty space was not really empty. It was where Dr. Song's computers predicted the alien ships would move next. Admiral Kivos stared at his displays in growing frustration. His ships had fired dozens of times at human targets, but every shot missed. Meanwhile, human weapons seemed to be anticipating his fleet's movements, placing explosive charges exactly where Confederation ships planned to go. "This is impossible," said Vorthak. "Our targeting systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. We cannot miss targets this large." "Sir," called out another officer, "Strike Group Talon is reporting problems. They moved to flank the human moon but found the area already mined with human explosives." "How did the humans know we planned to use that route?" "Unknown, sir. But it gets worse. Strike Group 7 tried to advance through what appeared to be a gap in human defenses. They found themselves in a crossfire from hidden weapons platforms." Kivos felt something cold in his stomach. This was not how space battles were supposed to work. The side with better technology and more ships always won. But somehow the humans were fighting as if they knew every move the Confederation would make before it happened. "Sir," said Zestine, her energy form flickering with concern, "I believe the humans are using some form of precognitive technology." "Precognition is impossible. No species has ever developed the ability to see the future." "Then how do you explain their tactical awareness?" Before Kivos could answer, another report came in. "Sir, the human defense platforms are moving. They're repositioning to new coordinates. Track them. Adjust our targeting." "Sir, they're moving to positions that put them behind our advancing squadrons. It's as if they know exactly where we're going to be." In the Soul Bunker, Commander Daehyun watched the battle unfold on his screens. The alien fleet was becoming confused and disorganized. Their precise formations were breaking apart as they tried to hit human targets that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. "Phase 1 complete," reported Park Mina. "The aliens are showing signs of tactical uncertainty." "How are we predicting their movements so accurately?" asked Lieutenant Cho. Dr. Yoon looked up from her computer. "We're not predicting them. We're using their own tactical manual against them." "What do you mean?" "For the past year, we've been studying every battle the Galactic Confederation has ever fought. They always use the same patterns, the same strategies, the same responses to specific situations. They're very good at what they do, but they're also very predictable," Kim Taewon called out from his station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Confederation flagship. Put it through." Admiral Kivos appeared on the screen. His blue face showed anger and confusion. "Human Commander, what technology are you using? How are your defenses evading our weapons?" Daehyun smiled. "Admiral, have you finished reading about Yi Sun-sin?" "Your ancient admiral is irrelevant to modern space combat, is he?" "At Myeongyang Strait, Yi Sun-sin defeated a larger enemy fleet by understanding one simple truth. The enemy's strength could be turned into weakness if you knew how they thought and where they would move." "Impossible!" You cannot predict fleet movements with such accuracy. We don't need to predict them, Admiral. You've been using the same tactical doctrines for 3,000 years. Every move your fleet makes follows patterns established long ago. Yi Sun Sin studied his enemies until he could think like them. We've done the same with you. The transmission ended. On his bridge, Admiral Kivos stood in stunned silence. The humans were not using advanced technology to anticipate his moves. They were using his own tactics against him. Every maneuver the Confederation fleet made followed standard procedures that human strategists had learned to counter. "Sir," said Vorthak quietly, "what are your orders?" Kivos looked at the tactical display. His fleet was still vastly superior in numbers and firepower. But for the first time in his long career, he was fighting an enemy that understood war better than he did. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "Begin random attack patterns. Abandon standard tactical formations." But even as he gave the order, Kivos realized the truth. His officers had trained their entire lives to follow Confederation military doctrine. Asking them to abandon everything they knew and fight randomly would only create more chaos. The humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had turned the Confederation's greatest strength, its unified military doctrine, into a fatal weakness. And the battle had only just begun. Major Park Do-yoon walked through the captured alien ship with 3 human soldiers behind him. The ship had crashed in the mountains of Tibet after taking damage from hidden missile batteries. Inside, 5 alien crew members sat with their hands bound, looking confused and frightened. Park was a small man with quick eyes and a mind that understood how enemies think. He had spent 20 years studying alien psychology, learning their languages, figuring out their weaknesses. Today, he would teach these prisoners something that might save both their species and humanity. "You are wondering how we knew where your ship would be," he said to the aliens in their own language. The prisoner, who seemed to be their leader, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, nodded slowly. "Your weapons are primitive," the alien said. "Your technology is centuries behind ours. Yet you fight as if you can see the future." Park sat down across from the prisoners. "We don't see the future, but we understand the past better than you do." "What do you mean?" "How many wars has your species fought against itself?" The gray-skinned alien looked confused. "We have not fought wars against our own kind for thousands of years. Such behavior is primitive and wasteful. And how many wars have humans fought against other humans?" "I do not know. Many, I assume. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. For our entire history, humans have been at war with other humans. We have studied every battle, every strategy, every way that one army can defeat another army." Park stood up and walked to a wall display that showed maps of famous human battles. "This is Cannae, where Hannibal destroyed a Roman army twice his size. This is Agincourt, where English archers defeated French knights. This is Stalingrad, where defenders held a city against overwhelming odds." The aliens stared at the battle maps with growing understanding. "Every human military officer studies these battles," Park continued. "We learn from them. We practice the tactics. We understand how to turn weakness into strength and how to make an enemy's advantages work against them. But those are ancient battles. Modern warfare is different. The weapons change. The principles stay the same. Your Galactic Confederation uses the same basic strategies that human generals figured out thousands of years ago. You surround the enemy, you use superior numbers, you attack from multiple directions. These are all tactics we invented. One of the prisoners, a creature that looked like it was made of metal and circuits, spoke up. "You are saying that we learned warfare from humans?" "Not directly, but yes, in a way. The basic ideas of military strategy were developed by humans fighting other humans. When your species started conquering other worlds, you used those same ideas because they work." Park pulled up another display showing the current battle around Earth. Watch how your fleet moves. See how they form attack groups, how they try to surround our defenses, how they coordinate their assaults. Every move follows patterns that human military schools have been teaching for centuries. The gray-skinned alien leader was beginning to understand. You know what we will do before we do it, because you invented the methods we use. Exactly. Your Admiral Kivos is a good commander, but he thinks like someone who learned warfare from books. Our commanders think like people whose ancestors died, learning these lessons in real battles. Meanwhile, on the other side of Earth, Colonel Lee Suman crouched behind the ruins of a building in Berlin. Alien landing forces had taken control of the city 3 hours ago, but now they were learning that occupying a human city was different from conquering an empty planet. Suman was 40 years old, a veteran of conflicts on 6 different worlds. She had short black hair and scars on her hands from old battles. More importantly, she had studied every urban warfare manual ever written and learned from every street-fighting expert in human history. Teams Alpha and Beta begin Phase 2, she whispered into her radio. Around the city, small groups of human soldiers began moving through sewers, subway tunnels, and abandoned buildings. They carried simple weapons, nothing that could threaten alien aircraft or heavy armor. But they were not trying to destroy the enemy forces. They were trying to make them afraid. The alien ground troops were tall creatures with thick armor and energy weapons that could cut through concrete. They had taken Berlin easily because their technology was superior. But now strange things were happening. Alien patrols would enter a building and find that all the windows had been broken from the inside. They would search empty streets and discover that someone had painted arrows on walls pointing toward their positions. They would set up defensive positions only to find human messages written in their own language telling them exactly where they were and how many soldiers they had. This is psychological warfare, Suman explained to her squad leaders over the radio. We can't fight their armor and weapons directly, but we can fight their confidence. The alien commander in Berlin, a creature called Nexus 5, was becoming frustrated. His forces controlled every major building and intersection in the city. His sensors showed no large groups of human soldiers anywhere, yet somehow humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "Report," he demanded from his command post in the old government building. "Sir, our patrols keep finding evidence of human activity, but no actual humans," said his aide. "Disturbed furniture, food that was recently prepared, electronic equipment that was just turned off. It's as if they know exactly when and where we're going to search. Are they using advanced sensors to track our movements?" "Our intelligence says no, sir. Human technology in this area is much less advanced than ours." "Then how?" The aide hesitated. "Sir, I believe they are using knowledge of urban terrain and human behavior patterns that we do not possess." Nexus 5 was beginning to understand something disturbing. His forces had conquered dozens of cities on other worlds, but those cities had been abandoned by their populations or defended by organized military units that fought conventional battles. Human cities were different. The population had not fled. Instead, they had melted away into the urban landscape like water soaking into soil. Back in space, Commander Nam Ji-won led a squadron of 12 human fighter craft toward an alien cruiser. That was 10 times the size of all his ships combined. Any sane pilot would have avoided such a target, but Nam had spent years studying the Battle of Myeongnyang and other impossible victories. "Flight leader to all ships," he said over the radio. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy that cruiser. We're trying to teach them something." The alien cruiser, called Dark Harbinger, detected the approaching human fighters and began evasive maneuvers. Its captain was confident. 12 primitive fighters against a ship with enough firepower to level a city. This would be over in seconds. But Nam had studied the historical battle records carefully. At Myeongnyang, Admiral Yi Sun-sin had not tried to sink the largest Japanese ships. Instead, he had forced them into a position where their size and power became disadvantages. All fighters, execute pattern Delta 7, Nam ordered. The human ships spread out and began flying in a complex pattern around the alien cruiser. They were too small and fast for the cruiser's main weapons to track effectively, but too numerous for the ship's defenses to engage all at once. More importantly, they were forcing the cruiser to maneuver in a specific direction, toward an area of space that appeared to be empty, but was actually filled with invisible mines that Dr. Song's holographic projectors had hidden from alien sensors. "Sir," the cruiser's weapons officer reported, "the human fighters are not attacking us. They appear to be herding us toward specific coordinates." "Herding us? Impossible. Maintain course and destroy those fighters." But the cruiser captain was learning what Admiral Yi Sun-sin had taught 400 years ago. Sometimes a smaller force could control the movements of a larger force by giving them no choice except to go where they wanted them to go. The Dark Harbinger flew directly into the minefield. Explosions ripped through its hull as hidden weapons, destroyed systems that alien engineers had thought were impossible to reach. As the damaged cruiser tried to retreat, its captain sent an emergency message to Admiral Kivos. "Sir, the humans are not fighting like any enemy we have encountered before. They appear to understand tactical principles that we have never considered." Across the battlefront, similar reports were reaching the Confederation command ship. Human forces were winning battles they should have lost, surviving attacks that should have destroyed them, and predicting enemy movements with impossible accuracy. Admiral Kivos stood on his bridge and finally understood what the human commander had been trying to tell him. The name Yi Sun-sin was not just a historical reference. It was a warning. Humanity was the only species in the galaxy that had spent thousands of years fighting wars against enemies who used the same tactics they did. Every other species the Confederation had conquered had been defeated by tactics they had never seen before. But humans had seen everything before. They had used every strategy, faced every challenge, and survived every type of warfare that existed. They were not just another primitive species to be conquered. They were the galaxy's teachers of war, and now the students were trying to fight the masters. Dr. Lim Young-ho stood in front of the massive computer screen in the underground research facility beneath Seoul. For the past 6 months, he had been studying something that would change everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy. Now, as the battle raged above Earth, it was time to reveal the truth. "Commander Dae-hyun," he said into his communicator, "I need to speak with Admiral Kivos directly. I have information that will end this war." Young-ho was an old man, maybe 65, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He was Earth's leading expert on galactic history, someone who had spent decades studying ancient records and forgotten archives. What he had discovered would shock both humans and aliens. In the Seoul command bunker, Commander Dae-hyun looked at the main display showing the battle around Earth. The alien fleet was in chaos. Their perfect formations had broken apart as human forces continued to predict and counter every move they made. But the aliens still had superior numbers and firepower. This could not last forever. "Dr. Lim, what information could possibly end this war?" "The truth about where the Galactic Confederation learned to fight," Young-ho replied. "Get me a direct communication link with their command ship. What I have to tell them will change everything." Dae-hyun nodded to Kim Tae-wan. "Open a channel to the alien flagship." On the Confederation command ship, Admiral Kivos was studying damage reports from across his fleet. Human resistance was stronger than anyone had predicted. Worse, his own officers were beginning to doubt their ability to win this battle. When the communication request came from Earth, he almost refused to answer. "Sir," said Commander Vorthak, "the humans are requesting direct communication with you. They claim to have important information. What could they possibly tell us that we don't already know? Perhaps they wish to surrender." Kivos doubted that, but he was curious. "Open the channel." The screen flickered and showed an elderly human man in a laboratory setting. Behind him were walls covered with star charts, alien writing, and ancient documents that looked thousands of years old. "Admiral Kivos," the human said. "My name is Dr. Lim Young-ho. I study galactic history. I have something to show you that will explain everything that has happened today." "I have no time for history lessons, human." "Then you have no time to understand why you are losing this battle," Young-ho replied calmly. "Admiral, how old do you think the Galactic Confederation's military doctrine is?" Kivos frowned. It seemed like a strange question to ask in the middle of a battle. "Our tactical principles have been refined over 3,000 years of successful expansion." "And where did those original principles come from?" "They were developed by the founding species of the Confederation based on logical analysis of effective combat strategies." Young-ho smiled sadly. "That's what your history books tell you, but it's not the truth." The old human turned to his computer and pulled up a document that appeared to be very old. The writing was in several different languages, including some that looked familiar to Admiral Kivos. 40,000 years ago, Young-ho began, a human colony ship called the New Horizon left Earth to explore the galaxy. This was long before humans had developed faster than light travel. The ship used primitive generation drive technology. The journey to their destination took 2,000 years. What does this have to do with current events? The New Horizon never reached its destination. It was captured by the precursors to your Galactic Confederation. The ship carried 20,000 humans in suspended animation, plus a complete database of human knowledge, including detailed military histories. Kivos felt something cold forming in his stomach. "Continue." The aliens who captured the ship were fascinated by human military knowledge. You see, their own species had never fought major wars. They were peaceful, logical beings who solved conflicts through negotiation and compromise. But they realized that to expand across the galaxy, they would need to understand warfare. Young-ho pulled up another document. This one showed tactical diagrams that looked remarkably similar to current Confederation battle formations. The humans aboard the New Horizon were forced to serve as military advisors. They taught their captors everything humans had learned about warfare over thousands of years. How to organize armies, how to conduct sieges, how to use terrain to your advantage, how to coordinate attacks between multiple forces. "This is impossible," said Commander Vorthak. "Our tactical doctrine was developed through logical analysis." "Was it?" Young-ho asked. "Admiral, do you recognize this battle formation?" He showed a diagram of ships arranged in a specific pattern. It was the exact formation that the Confederation fleet had used earlier in the battle. This is from a human military manual written 35,000 years ago. The formation is called the Double Envelopment Maneuver. It was first used by a human general named Hannibal at a battle called Cannae. Admiral Kivos stared at the screen. The formation was identical to what his fleet had been using. But that was impossible. The Confederation had developed these tactics through careful study and testing. "Show me more," he said quietly. For the next 20 minutes, Dr. Young-ho displayed document after document, ancient human battle plans that matched current Confederation tactics exactly. Strategic principles that the aliens thought they had invented, but which appeared in human military writings from tens of thousands of years ago. Every major tactical innovation in Confederation military history, Young-ho explained, can be traced back to the human database from the New Horizon. Your ancestors didn't develop these strategies. They learned them from human prisoners. "But the humans on that ship died 40,000 years ago," said Zestine. "How could their knowledge still influence our military?" "Because knowledge spreads," Young-ho replied. The tactical principles taught by those human prisoners became the foundation of Confederation military doctrine. They were passed down from generation to generation, refined and improved, but never fundamentally changed. Admiral Kivos looked around his bridge at the officers from different alien species. They were all staring at the screens with expressions of shock and disbelief. "You are saying Kivos said slowly, that everything we know about warfare came from humans. Not just came from humans, came from very old human knowledge. Your Confederation has been using tactics that human military strategists developed and then improved upon over thousands of years. You've been fighting with our discarded textbooks while we've been writing new ones. The communication channel fell silent. Every alien officer on the bridge was beginning to understand the horrible truth. They had thought themselves superior. Military minds, masters of warfare who had conquered dozens of species, but they had only been using copied homework from a species they considered primitive. There's more, Dr. Young-Ho continued. The humans you captured 40,000 years ago didn't just teach your ancestors military tactics, they taught them something else. Something that human commanders have always known but that your species never understood. What? That the best? Military minds are not the ones who follow the rules perfectly. They are the ones who know when to break the rules. The humans on the New Horizon taught your ancestors basic tactics, but they kept the advanced strategies to themselves. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Kivos felt his entire world view crashing down around him. Everything he had believed about Confederation superiority was built on a lie. They were not master strategists. They were students using an old textbook, while the teachers kept writing new chapters. "Why are you telling us this?" he asked. "Because," Dr. Young-Ho said, "the war you started today is not just about territory or resources. It's about which species will control the future of this galaxy, and right now, you're fighting the original authors of every military strategy you know." Admiral Kivos turned to look at his tactical display. The battle around Earth was not going well for the Confederation. Human forces continued to outmaneuver and outthink his commanders at every turn. Now he understood why. His fleet was not fighting primitive aliens who had gotten lucky. They were fighting the descendants of the same species that had taught the galaxy how to wage war in the first place. "Sir," said Commander Vorthak quietly, "what are your orders?" Kivos stared at the display for a long moment. He had two choices. He could continue the attack and watch his forces be systematically destroyed by superior strategy. Or he could admit that the Confederation had been wrong about humanity from the beginning. But before he could decide, another voice spoke from the communication channel. "Admiral," Dr. Young-Ho said, "there's something else you need to know. Something about the ships approaching from the outer system. Something that will change the balance of this war completely." Admiral Kivos looked at his sensor displays. The mysterious ships that had been detected earlier were getting closer, and they were transmitting signals that his computers were having trouble translating. "What ships?" he demanded. Dr. Young-Ho smiled. "The survivors of the New Horizon, Admiral. After 40,000 years, they're finally coming home, and they have some very interesting friends with them." On the main display, hundreds of unknown vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system. Ships of alien design, but broadcasting human identification codes. The battle for Earth was about to become. The alien ships from the outer system came closer to Earth, and Admiral Kivos could see them clearly now on his displays. They were unlike anything in the Confederation fleet. Strange designs that mixed technologies from dozens of different species, but all of them broadcasting the same message in perfect human language. "We stand with Earth." Commander Dae-hyun watched from his bunker as the mysterious fleet took positions around the solar system. There were hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. Each one was different, as if built by a completely different civilization. But they all moved together with perfect coordination. "Sir," said Kim Taewon, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship of the new fleet." "Put it through." The screen flickered and showed a face that was clearly human, but different somehow. The man had pale skin and strange markings around his eyes, as if he had lived among aliens for so long that he had begun to change. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was filled with creatures from species that no human had ever seen before. "Earth. Command," the man said. This is Captain Lee Jong-wan of the ship New Dawn. We received Dr. Yoon's signal 6 months ago. We came as fast as we could. Dr. Yoon Heiji stepped forward in the Seoul bunker. Captain Lee, are you the descendants of the New Horizon colonists? Some of us, yes. My great-great-grandfather was on that ship when it was captured 40,000 years ago. But we are much more than that now. What do you mean? Captain Lee smiled. Dr. Yoon, when you wrote the name Yi Sun Sin on that paper, it wasn't just a historical reference. It was a code word, a signal that we've been waiting for across the centuries. Commander Daehyun felt confused. Dr. Yoon, what is he talking about? She looked at him with eyes that held a secret she had kept for months. Commander, when I suggested you write that name, it wasn't just to confuse the aliens. It was to send a message to our people scattered across the galaxy. Our people? The descendants of the New Horizon aren't just survivors, Commander. They're teachers. For 40,000 years, they've been traveling from world to world, sharing human knowledge with species that the Confederation oppressed, teaching them that there's another way to live besides submission. On the Confederation flagship, Admiral Kivos stared at the growing fleet of unknown ships with growing alarm. His sensors were detecting energy signatures from technologies that shouldn't exist. Weapons that could tear through Confederation shields, engines that moved faster than anything his species had built. Sir, said Commander Vorthak, the new ships are taking defensive positions around Earth. They appear to be preparing for battle. How many ships? Over 2,000, sir. And more are arriving every minute. Where are they coming from? Before Vorthak could answer, another transmission came through to the Confederation flagship. This time it was from a creature that looked like living crystal, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Admiral Kivos, the crystal being said, I am Speaker Zara of the Liberated Worlds. We represent 47 different species that your Confederation has conquered over the centuries. We have come to collect a debt. What debt? The debt of freedom. For 3,000 years, your Confederation has told our people that resistance is futile, that your way is the only way, that weaker species must submit to stronger ones. But the humans taught us something different. Admiral Kivos felt his worst fears coming true. What did they teach you? That strength is not about technology or numbers. Strength is about refusing to give up when the odds are impossible. They taught us the stories of Admiral Yi Sun Sin, who won with 13 ships against 300. They taught us about human generals who held cities against armies, 10 times their size. They taught us that David can defeat Goliath if he aims for the right spot. More ships appeared around Earth. Each group was from a different species, but they all moved with the same purpose. The scattered peoples of the galaxy were gathering to stand against the Confederation that had ruled them for so long. Captain. Seong-Yoon commanded the last human orbital fortress above Earth. His station was damaged and barely functional, but he could see the alien fleet beginning to panic as more and more ships arrived to defend the planet. All stations, he said, into his radio. This is Fortress Prime. The cavalry has arrived. On the surface of Earth, Colonel Lee Suman received new orders from Seoul Command. The alien ground forces in Berlin were trying to retreat to their landing ships, but they found their way blocked by local human resistance fighters who had learned urban warfare tactics from the scattered survivors of the New Horizon. Teams. Alpha through Zulu, she said into her communicator. The aliens are running. Let them go, but make sure they remember what they learned here. In space above Earth, the battle was turning into something completely different. The Confederation fleet found itself surrounded by ships from dozens of species they thought they had conquered permanently. Races that had submitted peacefully thousands of years ago were now flying advanced warships and demanding their freedom. Admiral Kivos realized that his fleet was no longer the hunter. They had become the hunted. Sir, said Morpheus Prime, We are receiving surrender demands from 17 different species. They want us to withdraw from their home systems immediately. And if we refuse, they say they will demonstrate technologies that the humans taught them. Technologies that the Confederation has never seen before. As if to prove the point, one of the alien ships fired a single shot that passed harmlessly through space near the Confederation flagship. But the energy beam left a trail of something that looked like fire burning in the vacuum of space itself. "Impossible," whispered Zestine. "Energy cannot burn in space." Captain Li Zhongwan's voice came over the communication channel again. "Admiral Kivos," that was a demonstration. "The humans who were captured 40,000 years ago didn't just teach military tactics. They taught physics, engineering, chemistry, and dozens of other sciences. We've had 40 millennia to improve on their knowledge." Dr. Kim Hyesung appeared on the screen next to Captain Lee. She was an elderly woman with kind eyes, but her voice was firm. "Admiral, for the past year, I've been traveling to worlds throughout the galaxy, sharing human stories with oppressed peoples, teaching them that freedom is possible if you're willing to fight for it. You've been organizing a rebellion," Kivos said. "I've been sharing hope. Every species in your confederation has legends about heroes who won impossible victories. But they were just stories until we showed them that such victories are real, that humans have been winning impossible battles for thousands of years." Commander Daehyun stepped forward in the Seoul bunker. "Admiral Kivos, this is what the name Yi Sun-sin really means. It's not just about one battle fought 400 years ago. It's about the idea that no enemy is too strong if you refuse, to surrender and fight smart instead of fighting hard." The Confederation fleet was now completely surrounded. Ships from every corner of the galaxy had come to Earth, all of them flying under human advisors who had taught them that resistance was not futile. "Sir," said Commander Vorthak quietly, "what are your orders?" Admiral Kivos looked at his displays one last time. His fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technologies that his science officers couldn't understand. Worse, his own crews were beginning to doubt everything they had been taught about Confederation superiority. "Signal the fleet," he said, finally. "All ships are to power down weapons and prepare for withdrawal." "Sir?" "We're leaving. This war is over. But, Admiral, we came here to conquer Earth." Kivos looked at the piece of paper that still showed on his screen, the simple name that had started everything. "No, Commander. We came here thinking we were conquerors. But we were always just students. And today the teachers reminded us who really wrote the textbook. The Confederation fleet began its retreat from Earth. As they departed, they left behind a galaxy that would never be the same. Species that had been subjects for thousands of years were now free to govern themselves. Worlds that had been silent were now speaking with their own voices. Commander Daehyun stood in his command center and picked up the piece of paper with Yi Sun-sin's name on it, a simple name that had ended a war and changed the fate of an entire galaxy. "Dr. Yoon," he said, "did you know this would happen when you suggested that name?" She smiled. "I hoped it would. Admiral Yi Sun-sin taught us that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it's just an idea that refuses to give up." Outside, the stars looked different now. Instead of being ruled by one empire, the galaxy was filled with free peoples who had learned that David could indeed defeat Goliath if he knew where to aim. And somewhere in space, the spirit of an ancient Korean admiral seemed to whisper across the centuries, "Choose your battles carefully. Fight smart, not hard, and never surrender when freedom is at stake." The human name on a simple piece of paper had reminded the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the odds might seem.